But thank you all for coming. This is the first evening public event in the archive, which is really exciting, but also who knows how it will go. I think it will go brilliantly because we've got Maristella. When Neil said that Maristella was coming, I think we thought that she wouldn't be here that much. And we're so lucky that she's coming nearly every day. And it's been such a treat. But we're really excited to see what she has to say. And thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I mean, yes, I came more than, no, I was planning to come every day. But what was really great in this everyday coming is that we started from very simple, I mean, looking at one material and then I say, oh, why we don't look at the other one? Oh, we can read that, we can do that, we can discover something else. So this is what this conversation is. It's about discoveries, is about reading documents, looking at drawings. Some are more relevant. Everything is part of a narrative. So I hope you will enjoy it. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. Okay, you know who I am, Maristella Casciato. And I think in a conversation like this, is at the beginning, we would say de rigueur to say thank you. I have to say that more than saying thank you to Drawing Matters, to the team, is to say thank you to the time I was allowed to spend in this collection. Because, I mean, every single day, as I try to convey right now, I mean, there is something new to discover or something new to appreciate. Now, I started in an archive of architecture in '74, I mean, years and years ago. And archives are clearly at this point my passion. I mean, I like to go and look and search and understand. And here I find in a certain way a kind of ideal environment. Now, the announcement that I'm only partially involved with, Martha organized all this, tells you a lot, tells you that there will be a lot of narratives, that Maristella is talking about that and that. Well, I'm going to transform this in a very, I hope, witty but joyful presentation. No academic tone, please. Allow me one evening to be just with a group of friends in front of me. Now, if I go to the next slides, if I'm able to do this. Immediately, what's wrong? Interesting. Allow.
You might have got, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, okay, sorry. This is standard. If you look at the name of the architects who are involved in this conversation, you might feel a bit overwhelmed. I mean, it's a pantheon of illustrious, also very different. I mean, characters, different provenance, conditions, from Le Corbusier to Frank Gehry via Gio Ponti, Paul Williams. So this could feel a bit overwhelmed. I can tell you that, in fact, they will metaphorically speak only through a very few very selected, curated documents that I prepared, displayed most of them on the table, and we will allow these documents to take the voice in this conversation. So the names are very important, a pantheon, but I mean, we'll make it in a different way. And we begin from, being Italian, from an Italian master. We begin from Gio Ponti, and as I wrote in my note, the master of style. Here you see an image of Gio Ponti with his wife in their house. And my point is that in Ponti's life, all is style. Ponti's life and style are like, two facets of the same medal. And his journal that you see here, Stile or Lo Stile, depends, serves really as a banner of his creativity. Look at these images and you start thinking, what about style in Gio Ponti? I arrived here and I was confirmed that Ponti's style really explodes in his correspondence. People will think, correspondence? What do you want? Letters. Ponti had an incredible way of writing letter, receiving letter, looking for who were the people he was, really in this correspondence. Letters are very natural for him and deeply personal device to express all kind of feelings, esteem, trust, wishes, friendships. Sometimes friendship can become even love. Letters are important to recall memories, stories, promises. And from these letters, what you discover is an incredible way of expressing his feelings. So you will notice in these letters that there are, they have very strong visual character. Words, parole, are intertwined with profiles. Here you see a profile from the cover number 1 of Stile. Here a profile of a letter to Esther McCoy. I don't have to say who is she. Or they also lines that flourish everywhere. There are fingers that are directed the flow of words, of sentences, of lyrics. When I arrived, I was asked, Maristella, can we read together letters of Gio Ponti? They are in Italian. And I found this was the most incredible exercise that I could have done. And then I decided to show you few more letters before going to the archive. Ponti, for instance, through all his life, he developed a true obsession, even in objects, true obsession with the heart, the representation, and the hand and the heart. And here you see, letters. This one is a letter to Anala and Armando, but specifically Anala Planchard. Those are the people who commissioned the beautiful house Planchard in Caracas, Venezuela. And here again, a letter with Esther McCoy, where he sends his mode of friendship through the drawing of the heart. The next one, it will be even more probably unusual. Those are a series of letters that he addressed to Louise Mendelssohn. At the time, Louise was the widow of the well-renowned architect. And they started, a very, I would say sometimes very personal, even intimate, and in a very intellectual, not strongly way, but on a very strong relationship. And to Louise Mendelssohn are also dedicated for him, for instance, poems, and also poems that evoke images. The next slides will show you this. In his book, Nuvole sono immagini, translated clouds are images, of 67 that Ponti was sent to all his friends as a Christmas present. He also includes few lyrics, and one of them is a lyric for Louise, and I translated what it's written there. Are dreams signals or are signals dreams? Do you believe in signals or do you believe in dreams? I mean, it's up to you. I mean, it's a way you expect the well-known architect, the editor of Domus, of course, the architect who made, I mean, really Italian design becoming at the top, I mean, in the 60s and 70s of the design in the world. And you see a totally different personalities that are transferred through these letters. Ponti's letters are, I mean, an enormous collection, basically in a few collections in Milano, and sometimes those collections also reach other locations. And there is an incredible collection here now at Drawing Matter. And it's a collection that has very much to do with a specific publication that it's extremely important in all Gio Ponti's career, is the publication of this special issue of a journal, Aria d'Italia, in Espressioni di Gio Ponti. The publication of Aria d'Italia was edited by Daria Guarnati, and here at Drawing Matter, there is an incredible, I will show you now a few examples, correspondence between Gio Ponti and Daria Guarnati, together with the full development of the operation, the layout, the selection of the images for the special issue of Aria d'Italia. Daria Guarnati, who was born in Paris, was the founder and the editor of, really lasted for a very short time, Aria d'Italia, that started in 1941. It was an interdisciplinary journal of art, architecture, fashion, literature, theater. And when she decided to publish the special issue that only came out in 1954, dedicated to Gio Ponti, she also started a long friendship with Ponti, with the family, and so became part of this, I would say, group of women that surrounded Gio Ponti. Now, the idea of this conversation, only when you feel and if you like, but I'll point it out, is a kind of performance. So I'll move now to some of the documents that are related to Gio Ponti correspondence, Daria Guarnati and Aria d'Italia, in this section of the table and over here. Let me start from here because everybody can look at this. You see when I say a fascination for the hand. Keep in mind this idea of the hand. If you move quickly, you'll notice that there is another hand at the end of the table. So, but we stay now with Gio Ponti. Hands, and here from the hands, the words, I mean, are flowing and are becoming part of ideal form. Here, for instance, the nuvole, I mentioned the book Nuvole, Clouds Are Images, are in a letter to Daria Guarnati, where Gio Ponti says, every day we have clouds, but this gives me the plan to write a small book, the book of 67 that was a present for Christmas to Holly's friends. And some of the letters, very rarely, I have to say, in my experience, some of the letters are dated. For instance, this is 51, and it's one of the very first letters he addressed to Daria Guarnati. And here, he is still very formal. Cara Signora Guarnati, dear Mrs. Guarnati. Doesn't say cara Daria, something, I mean, amore mio, it's written here, something else. No, at the beginning there is this formality, because the letter is still giving you a message that has to do here, in this case, is the beginning of their collaboration for Aria d'Italia. So those letters also are witness of different stage of the way, as I said, he thinks that friendship is, and trust. And so he works along all these feelings and all these sentiments in a way. Let me say, this is, you have seen it, this is an original copy of Aria d'Italia, the Gio Ponti issue. Is the first one, and for years and years will remain the only monographic work dedicated to Gio Ponti. One thinks, well, he is the editor of Domus, he can have thousands of books on his work. No, we need to wait up until mid-60s when Lisa Licitra Ponti, Gio Ponti's daughter, will publish a book on her father, which is something already very complex. What we have here, this is the journal, of course, and then in the collection you also have documents like this. You can move around, at a certain moment when you wish. This is one of the options for, and it's a very beautiful painting, for the cover of the journal. Now, what does it mean, this? It means that Gio Ponti, and this is written also, you read it through the letter, Gio Ponti is directly involved with Daria in the preparation of the layout, in the selection of the images, the photographs, the photographers. The special issue was produced for an exhibition at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston, Massachusetts. Actually, it's double language, so it's really a very special outcome in the career of Gio Ponti, who at that time had already realized several of his famous villas, but two of the Montecatini buildings in Milano. So he was already very well advanced in his career. Here we had opened a page, can I find it here, for instance, of some of those decoration of Mediterranean tiles for one of his villa in the southern of Italy. And here we have the original of the pages, drawing by Gio Ponti, to be then included in the special issue. This becomes really something, I think, not for a scholar, but for researchers, a really moment of discoveries of how something that become, I don't like this word a lot, iconic, but Aria d'Italia, that now it's a rarity, it's really a milestone in Ponti's career. And here we have all what is on the backside, the backstage of a journal like this, including those letters. Now, you notice that the letters, I thought, is he writing a letter to the clients in this way? No, probably this is something that really involves him completely. Here you see again the silhouette that you have seen in one of the images, and from the mouth the words are flowing. It has been a pleasure. I worked on Gio Ponti for quite a long time, of course. I was also the co-curator of an exhibition at the Maxi in Rome, dedicated to Gio Ponti. And from the very beginning, letters have been, for me, a way to understand. Not very much to understand the architecture, but to understand how the man is acting in his environment. And this will has been for me, I mean, as the short announcement of the event said, it has been a confirmation of ideas I had, but also a confirmation of how much Gio Ponti, as I say, editor, founder of Domus, I mean, was so keen in producing something that was is something related to his own work. And with Daria, who in his mind was not only a sophisticated editor and publisher, but also a woman who could understand, I mean, other arts beyond architecture. So the idea of the lyrics, like in letters like this, are very important, or the idea of other arts like ceramics or painting. So this was the beginning of my time at Drawing Matter. I spent probably a week, 10 days with you guys, and I was not expecting, and you will understand why this was not the work I was thinking to do, but this has really been revelatory. Anytime after this conversation, feel free to go around and to ask questions. Now, second part, we leave Gio Ponti. Why this is here? No, I don't want. I want to have this. Okay, probably I'm not more known, I mean, at this point, because I came here from the Getty Research Institute from Los Angeles. This was my 3 months of sabbatical leave, but in fact, this is where I work. This is the Getty Research Institute within the Richard Meyer campus. And actually at the Getty, I supervise the architecture collection and also the acquisition. And speaking of acquisitions, one of the largest acquisition, the reason why I was asked to join the Getty Research Institute at the time of Thomas Gettgens, the director, was for the acquisition of Frank Gehry papers, only in a short, I mean, related to a limited chronological span, 54 to 88, the year before the Pritzker Prize, 89. This has been a work that has revealed to be extremely complicated, specifically because of the sheer volume of the documents that we received, even for that time period, because I insisted very much with Frank that the acquisition was not of beautiful drawings. The acquisition was the acquisition of an archive of an architect, of his office, with office paper, again, correspondence, all what means, I mean, understanding the process of his work. At this point that the cataloging is completed, the finding aids for Frank Gehry, just to give you a sense, is about a volume of 800 pages, only the finding aids. I don't think that any other institution wants to go through a process like this. But among the papers, sketches, photos, an incredible component of the acquisition were models. Models related to this period, including, because it was my request, the Walt Disney Concert Hall. And here you see a model of the Walt Disney Concert Hall, also known as the Biennale model, because it was presented at the 5th Biennale in Venice in 91 in the American Pavilion, a pavilion at the time curated by Philip Johnson, with a dialogue between Frank Gehry and Peter Eisenman at the time. Models have been an important component of the of this acquisition. And I guess that few of you, in this audience, remember long ago, years ago, at the beginning of the year 2000, I guess, an interview with Frank Gehry. Gehry was asked to associate a project or an idea to each letter of the alphabet. And when the M came, he had no doubt and said, M, model. Models for me are the way I produce, I create architecture, and out of question. And this is a model I recently was able to move from Los Angeles and alone to the Maxi Museum in Roma for an exhibition titled Stop Drawing. Examining how the change of the profession of the architect and the use of the model as a device for the design. And the other important, here I want to do part of my performance because the question is, do you have anything related to, Neil is there, to Frank Gehry in this collection? Architects, sometimes they love to sketch while they are lunching or dinner or with friends, maybe on the tablecloth. And in the case of Frank Gehry, we do have, Julia, thank you, you will remember, we do have a napkin. Here it is. This is, you don't see much here, but this is a napkin with in pencil, so difficult to keep, in pencil of a project of Frank. This is a Louis Vuitton building, not in Paris. We are in Seoul, Korea. And it's an incredible project that, design a building that has been completed. And this is another kind of evidence of what you have in an archive. Because archives, are archives of, as we say, specifically of drawing matter, of ideas, of processes, of situation. This is basically similar to your situationist during a dinner probably, or a lunch or something like this. Julia, who at the time, was in Los Angeles, can tell us more, but that's what we have.
Julia always told me that it was the Chinese restaurant on Sunset.
Yes. That's where they met, and he's talking about an important building.
Yes, in Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. At the time, probably his office was still in Cloverfield.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in Cloverfield in Santa Monica. Now it's in Mar Vista. But there is an evidence of his creativity. The next collection, very briefly, I want to touch upon is the most recent one. It's an acquisition of 2021 that I started in the middle of the pandemic, to say you the truth. So it was extremely complicated. Also for what was happening in Los Angeles at the time. And it's the collection of Paul Revere Williams, the African-American architect that you see here in an image that it's already an image quite late in his career of mid-50s, while he is showing to other people the site for the LAX airport. He was involved with other group. But it has been an important acquisition because relatively little was known about Williams and his very, very long career, specifically because of the fact that during the Los Angeles upheavals of 1992, not Black Lives Matters, that has been while we were doing the acquisition, but 92, part of his archive burned. Now, most of the people, generally was the idea was that all his archive burned. In fact, only the office paper burned in the building of one of the bank of the African American community in Los Angeles. The archive was somewhere else, the drawings with his family, and we have been able to do this acquisition. And being in the middle of the pandemic, no way to do inventories, no way to follow the usual procedures, of good practice. We collected everything that was there, specifically because we were in Los Angeles in the middle of other upheaval, riots, Black Lives Matter, so we had to do very quickly. Now the inventory of Paul Williams' career, what we received from the family has been completed, and the number of projects for this architect right now is, and it doesn't tell you that it's the full career, what we have acquired is about 1,800 projects. So this transforming in drawings, it's again a sheer amount of work. It has been very, very interesting because, at least for me, I had not a complete knowledge of the African American community in Los Angeles. He played a major role. Williams is the architect who is the first to be become an African American to be a member of the American Institute of Architects, the first one to be establish his own office, the first. He has so many firsts, but to me that was not the most important to understand. I was interested in knowing how this man related to his community, what kind of project, and how much in his career at a certain moment he also changed, his office and the way he was working. In few words, he started working for the African American communities. Then he is known for that, as the architect of the Hollywood stars, which tells you a lot about what was Hollywood in the 30s, why an African American architect, and among his clients you have Tyrone Power, Frank Sinatra, you named, and they are residences by Paul Williams. I was more interested at the moment when the architect started his collaboration with major other office in Los Angeles for the transformation of the city, specifically for downtown. So already in 45, 46, he established a collaboration with Welton Becket, then with Pereira. The Pereira, Laxman, Becket, and Williams were in charge of the LAX airport, which was the major transformation of the area of Inglewood. And at that moment, he already started working on a series of infrastructural projects for Los Angeles. And this is one project that is the World Transportation Center, which had different locations, but this is the one that interests me particularly because at Drawing Matter, there is a drawing. Another version of that project. Then I started looking at this and questioning the difference between the two. I knew that he was collaborating with other architects. This is an idea of a new hub, of transport, and also a redefinition, of the whole area around the Union Station. We are really downtown Los Angeles. It's a very important area also for the history of the city. And this document, they come from the archive of the GRI. I was almost saying from my archive, sorry, the archive at the GRI. And at this point, he is working, with different media, collages like this, all kind of perspectival views, different, drawings like this, where he says those are rough preliminary drawings for Union Station, but then, they had to decide the different kind of train, the local, the metropolitan, and so on. And here we are, 1961. The LAX starts mid-50s. At that point in his office, the number of projects for each year goes skyrocketing. In the same year, he is working for 4 different hotels, 2 Beverly Hills, the Ambassador Hotel, for people who knows Los Angeles, know what the Ambassador is or means in Wilshire. So he is extremely busy, and he is doing what most of the architects are doing at the time. He has important clients, so sometimes renderings are the only way for an architect to propose the work to your client, to make it saying, okay, this is well done, this is excellent, those are the Hollywood Towers, and this is one of his, another hotel in Los Angeles. Who is the architect who was well known not only in Los Angeles, but in the United States, who was considered at the time the most important, the most renowned. They call him sometimes architecture illustrators, which is the name of someone who does a little drawing here and there. This is really a skill that it's related, referred to a few people in the US. In this case, this is Carlos Diniz. Carlos Diniz worked all over the country, specifically for major corporation, SOM for sure, for example, or DMJ in Los Angeles, Saarinen. He was called everywhere in the US to realize the renderings like this. And of course, Paul Revere Williams was following the mode. What all the office and corporation were following, and so he had several of his projects he retires at the end of the 60s, but most of the big projects like this of the 60s, he goes, entrusted, Carlos Diniz for the renderings. And so I was starting looking at the drawing more carefully, also because I discovered that Drawing Matters has a large collection of Carlos Diniz renderings. And some of them are really impressive. I will suggest that one day you come only to see, they are gigantic. Diniz rendering, for instance, the American Embassy Moscow. SOM American Embassy Moscow. It's an incredible project, and the way it is being represented really gives you also an idea of the importance of that kind of architecture needs to embody. So I looked carefully to some of the Paul Diniz renderings in this collection, like this. This is SOM project for the World Trade Center competition in downtown, in Manhattan. And then I look, I mean, this is a case of black and white, but I mean, Denise was doing the black and white and the colors. I mean, it's not that the point. And I looked at this and I thought, oh, World Trade Center, I mean, what kind of representation and so on. And then I started looking at some of these drawings, for instance, where people come into the rendering, where people are overlooking the space, and the way, I mean, this is 65, this is a drawing of 63. I mean, the way people are represented, and I came up with the following idea that I shared for you this night for the first time. I think this is a Carlos Denis rendering, which is not completed because the sky is not completed. And I don't have time to show all the slides, but I asked some of one of my collaborators in Los Angeles to send me some other slides. Paul Williams had a great passion for completing the drawings with the sky, drawing clouds, using very saturated colors for the sky and so on. So I believe, and I guess that my suggestion has several reasons, I mean, to be considered possible, that Carlos Denis, who very often did not complete his rendering, did the rendering and left part of the sky, I mean, empty, also giving Paul Williams the pleasure, I mean, of rework a bit the drawings. This you can see, I mean, when you look at the drawing very carefully, you see a lot of a reason why this could be a feasible suggestion or reasonable. And then the rendering for SOM gave me several, I mean, witness that this could be very much related to the work that Denise was doing at the time. So, I mean, as you notice, I mean, I moved from Gio Ponti, then I started looking at Paul Williams, also because we are preparing Gehry, but we are preparing an exhibition on Paul Williams for the end of 2016. But in fact, I came here for a totally different reason, finally. Believe it or not. So forget Ponti, no matter how much I like the Domus or Stile specifically, but I came here in April actually to investigate what you see here in this image, what I will show you more carefully, and also when you will come close to the table, to do an investigation on this book. An object, a spiral-bound dossier titled Chandigarh, Punjab, Grille, Grid, Capitole, Le Corbusier, Paris, October 20, 1952. And why? Because when I was finally offered the opportunity to take my sabbatical leave, I had just completed the work and it came out the publication of a book that it's the facsimile reprint that you see in the next slides in case. It's a facsimile reprint of a notebook of traveling of Le Corbusier. This covers the first 3 weeks he traveled for the first time to India before starting the project for the capital of Punjab, for Chandigarh. why this was so interesting, because when and correctly, when Neil, this is his copy, saw the facsimile reprint, he was not only fascinated by the object, but he was questioning, asking me, what is the role of the significance of this object? I mean, it's you will see what it is. I mean, it's a work of that. I mean, it's an office booklet where drawings and sketches are composed together. So he asked me, what is the relationship between a document like the album Punjab 51 and the Grille Capitol 52? I said, good question. I know that I could study it also remotely, but the point was to see really object and to compare to some other documents here in the archive. In fact, there are two of this office book, let's call it. I mean, now you will know what they are better, in the drawing matter collection. One is related to the Capitol complex, and the other one is related to the open hand monument. At the end of the table, another hand. Now, it is, of course, clear to me, I mean, immediately, that the Grille Capitol, that you see they are open, and the open hand project booklet are both in the intention and in the production very different from any of the notebook or sketchbook that Corbu authored. I mean, it's not a book of sketches. They are not book of sketches or something, or traveling notebooks. They are something that we know now better, this last part of this conversation. They are extremely interesting because they are related also to what is Le Corbusier office after 1950. What is he, how is he working when, and this is something else I would like to talk with you all, when in fact Le Corbusier in a certain way has two offices, one in Paris and the other one in Chandigarh. And in both cases, they also work together. And so, I mean, something is happening in the office that it's worth to analyze. Now, after a quick visit at the Fondation Le Corbusier, where I went, I find out that at the Fondation there is a series of 11, without including these two, of 11 books like this that are called in French plaquettes. There are 11 plaquettes. They are dated between 1951 and 1965, so when Le Corbusier died, 51-65. In what I was able to come with an idea, I mean to realize, is that they witness an interesting practice Le Corbusier developed in the office. They document, here you see a few of them, 3 in this image, they document the most important projects of those 15 years. From the museum in Tokyo to the plan for Meaux, the city, and also the Unité d'Habitation, but also a project for 61 for the location of the Gare d'Orsay, where he was planning to have a congress hall and a hotel, and even more. Oh no, sorry. I want to go back. Some other, a project that you will see in a while. Now, what they are, they document the project, and each of them is assigned to one of his collaborators in the office. So probably one of the architects who works on one of these projects, he is requested to, he's in charge of producing one of these plaquettes. In this sense, in a certain way, though under the supervision of the architect or the control, as we discussed, of course, of Le Corbusier, those collaborators become also in a certain way authors of each one of this booklet. Still, it doesn't say what they are, but it's already a step further. For instance, we know that for the Grille Capitol that we have in front of us, Julián de la Fuente, the Chilean architect from Santiago, who was in charge of part of the Capitol project, he is the one who was also the one who compiled this plaquette. The very first one of this is one dedicated to Marseille. It's dated 51. It's very clear that Marseille is an important project for Le Corbusier, not only for the Unité d'Habitation, but for the whole plan of the city. And this becomes clear when you look at the œuvre complète, where even before Chandigarh and so on, Marseille, with Bogota, they played a major role. Okay, excellent. This is one good argument for demonstrate what the importance. I also find exceptional that for the project of the factory, the Olivetti factory in Rho, near Milano, that you see here in a tiny small model of drawing matter from Le Corbusier atelier, I imagine, and some images. There are 4 plaquettes. One of them, the usual black one, dated. One of these is dedicated to a traveling of Le Corbusier to Italy, just to talk with the client and so on. So all this makes me thinking, what are those? I mean, why these are produced? I think that this plaquette are basically or mostly intended for presentation. So to present, I mean, for meetings, maybe conferences. So that's an idea that came and that became very relevant. Definitely for archival purposes, to have a sense of the project, to keep in the office an archival, a witness, documentation of the projects. Then the other interesting aspect is that when you look at them, they are all this horizontal binder, spiral bounded, and they have basically always the same dimension. So, this becomes something worth investigating. And at this point, I go to the center of my conversation and presentation. Looking at the documentation and the years of these plaquettes, project booklets, I became convinced that they are probably done in order to create a kind of shared language among architects or practitioners of that people can look at this and produce something similar, and that there is a language that is shared. And considering all this, and I'll go quickly to the center of this observation, I think that we go back to the post-World War II SIAM, the Congress of International Architecture Congress. And here we need, oh no, what's this? Yeah. We need a very quick, if you allow me, a short antequem. 42, Le Corbusier, who is extremely exhausted, I would say, leaves Vichy and goes back to Paris. His time at Vichy becomes very well known. I mean, it's a public situation that puts him in a different condition. At the same time, he is founding the Ascoral group. The Ascoral is a group of practitioners, architects, engineers, but also politicians that participate, sociologists that participate with him in a project that in a certain way represents a new beginning of the post-war era. He is at the time 55, and he needs to have around him a kind of apparatus, a group, I mean, something that allows him to be able to fight again, to restart, also to develop new ideas for modern architecture. He also is developing, he's publishing, as I wrote here, the Ascoral was founded in 42. In 44, he reopens the office in Rue de Sèvres, and he's publishing the Athens Charter with a group of SIAM, the French group, and also he prepares for all the SIAMs that will come a very specific publication, and it's this one, that is called Grille SIAM, produced by the Ascoral people, presented in 47 and accepted in 48. What it is, the Grille SIAM? The Grille SIAM is a way to try to give an order, a shared language, a way of understanding operation in various countries, I mean, of the world at that point, where architects respond in the same way to similar exigencies, working class housing, plan of development of new neighborhood, even city planning. For this, what they prepared is a very, I mean, like I would say, a layout of all the documentation that needs to be, each group has to present. And the layout includes also the elaboration of documents like this. It's not by pure coincidence that it's called grid, Capitol. In this case, it's one of the SIAM grid produced to discuss the project for the Capitol complex in Chandigarh. Now, I didn't put the two together immediately, but the size made me thinking there is something, after I went to the Fondation Le Corbusier, that I need to understand. And you probably remember the announcement of this event. I'm measuring, because over here, the measures of each of the documents that are presented for a conference here is basically fixed. The number, I mean, the way they have to be produced. 21 for 33, an index like this, that is a diagram of the display, the way the pages are composed, that can be drawings or sketches, and then always a legend on one side, typewritten, always the same measure. If you go here and you turn the page, you see the measure of the legend over here. I mean, it gives you all the definition. So basically what I said, I mean, he gave, I mean, this is the idea. He gave his office the opportunity to produce this. He also offers to all his colleagues, and in the perspective of the many, not many at the end, Siam conferences, I mean, the possibility to prepare what are called the Siam grid that we all have seen, Moroccan, Algiers, for various, UK, of course, for various countries. The adoption of, I mean, when I found this became revelatory to me, because initially it was difficult to understand, but finally I realized here you have the function of the Athens Charter, the dwelling, working, leisure time, and so on. Here you have all the other components of the topic of the theme of your analysis, and you, by the end, compiled, I mean, these booklets. It's obvious that, I mean, there is a very close relationship between Ascoral, the foundation of the group, the production of the CM grid, and subsequently the production of the plaquettes of the office. It was interesting then to realize that besides the fact that the same documents are in the Œuvre Complète, but if one looks, for instance, at the Marseille plan, and I show you the 51 booklet, and then you go to the Œuvre Complète, you see exactly the same format. The legend on one side, the image, and so it proceeds this way. It seems almost a mechanical process, but in fact, it has, I mean, it changes in my mind the way the office is working. There are many projects. He has to control this project. Those becomes devices not only of documentation but also of control of the projects. So it's in a certain way an interesting beginning for me of a new understanding of how the post-World War II office, the two offices together, Chandigarh and Paris, are working. Now, I had this feeling, this is 52, I say this for sure will be presented in 53 at the 9 Siam in Aix-en-Provence, where, for instance, Candilis and presented them in Casablanca and so on. Unfortunately, there is no evidence of the presentation of the Grille Capitole. In fact, the Grille Capitole was only presented, recomposed. I mean, we did it at the CCA for the exhibition Casablanca, Chandigarh, on the base of the documents that were still at the Getty archive in Zurich. We were able more or less to give a sense of the Grille of Chandigarh, grid of Chandigarh. Now the question is, why that grid and not the grid Capitole? And I found the answer in one of Corbusier notebooks, the one that were reprinted in this famous volume. At a certain moment, he writes, write to Jane Drew that it's necessary to prepare a Siam grid for Chandigarh, maybe even more than one. Short text. And in fact, in Chandigarh, the grid that I reconsider was presented on working class housing by Jane Drew and a group of the architects at the architect office. She was still working for the architect office in Chandigarh. What I want to do now, before probably few minutes to complete with well, I don't know. Maybe I'll complete now, and then we'll all get together around the table. This one remained my last mystery. What is this, and why the open hand? By the way, the open hand is in the collection of drawing matter to this very, very famous, because it's quoted in several texts, quoted, referred, calc of the open hand monument through a drawing with the structure of the open hand, of the monument in tracing paper. Also, in a beautiful drawing for the Bakra Dam, the big dam on the north of Chandigarh, that was one of the major modernization projects of the Prime Minister Nehru, that becomes almost the base, the big infrastructure on the top of which Le Corbusier again put the signal of this monument. So I said, what is this and why? Why to produce a plaquette like this? And I ended up with the idea, looking very carefully through this, that this is in fact a propaganda booklet. It starts with a letter reprinting a letter by Le Corbusier to, I want to make sure that I give you the right information. It's a letter to the World Congress of Upholders of Peace held in Warsaw in April 49. In the letter, the monument becomes one of the vehicles to respond to one of the urgency of the Cold War. Le Corbusier here says, we have a dilemma of world power divided between the United States and the Soviet Union. I don't want to go in no one of this direction. We need to find a different direction. And he offers, and we are in 49, the idea of the open hand monument as a kind of banner of this in-between condition. There are the translation, in English, of the French text, the page of the open hand in the volume of the Œuvre Complète, and then what you see here. This is the document in the Nivola album number 1 of the first meeting between Le Corbusier and the Prime Minister Nehru. It happened in Delhi. We are in November 1951. It's the second journey of Le Corbusier to India. They finally meet, and at the end of this conversation, Le Corbusier again, talk to Nero about evoke the importance of the monument of the open end as the monument that represents, he says, an eminent part in this document of the design of the new capital in India. So it's interesting in this compilation that we go from Warsaw to the meeting with Nehru. Of course, the document is transcribed, from the handwritten pages, and then you find a draft of a letter that he is preparing to be presented to the Prime Minister Nehru. So the letter is 54, during the inauguration of, I lost one page here, during the inauguration of the Palace of Justice in Chandigarh. We are in March 55. So basically, this booklet here has, in my opinion, it's more a political statement. He says, after World War II, in this condition of Cold War, I imagine the open hand is a monument that represents this new harmony. He wants to give it to Chandigarh, but also to make sure that the Prime Minister, like in this image, receives in advance, the document, the description of this program. And in a certain way, I was looking again at this document. I found something that for me, you need to come here, was extremely impressive. There is a little open hand even on top of the terrace of the Secretariat. This doesn't exist any longer in Chandigarh. Someone took it away. But it's obvious that this is a reiteration like this, of this idea. Now, the inauguration, I don't want to jump into conclusion too fast, but I think this is a political statement. The inauguration of the first building of the Capitol complex is 55 March. The Bandung Conference for the non-aligned movement is April 55. Nehru is one of the major figures, with Tito, with the president of Egypt, Nasser, and so on, and the president of the non-aligned, a movement. So at the end, if this was more a document that represents a certain approach, to the architectural project, the open hand is really a political statement. And this is the way I looked through this collection. Thank you. Now, feel free, because the reason why the documents are all in the Mylord is because everybody can come, see, look, touch, or have any questions, not only to me, to Neil, to all of us.
I'm really torn between opening the floor to questions and suggesting that people should actually first, if they want, come up and look at the drawings on the table. And in a way, let's have a conversation around the table. Can we do that?
Yeah, those who wants to come,
Okay,
everybody, I hope everyone wants to come.
Before we do that, thank you, Maristella, that was really wonderful. I hope that all of you got some sense of what it's been like for the last 2 months. Every morning, a new discovery, a new conversations on. It's been fantastic for us at the team. And to see the collection really, or to see individual items in the collection repositioned in relation to other things, to understand how the complexities of how practices work, how many voices and hands are involved in the production of different things. I mean, it's been, for us, a fantastic revelation. Why don't you, anybody who wishes, come forward and have a look at what Maristella has been doing, and let's then see if there's a moment for questions or whether we can do it. Can we do it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the documents are here also. Or anyone, I mean, who has any curiosity.